Hello, everyone. Welcome to my very first live stream. I know I'm 1 minute early. I am always early to every single meeting that I have in this life because I do not want to be late. That's probably the Capricorn moon inside of me. So before I jump into things, I want to thank you for being here. I would like someone to write me a comment to tell me something in the live chat to say, yes, Rux, we can see you, we can hear you, because I've got no clue whether that's the case. Hi, Maria. Also, I would love to hear from where you are tuning in. So hello from Serbia. Oh, thank you, lovely people. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for being here. So yes, I was saying that. Amazing. Thank you. Brilliant. Hello, Minneapolis. Hi from Texas, London, Midwest USA. All over the place. People, we are globally connected. I love this. Boston, Italy. Oh my gosh, Italy, you people, sending you all the love. Philadelphia, Chicago. Go Mexico, go Aquarius. Serbia again, Austria, Canada. Maryland. Thank you, Maryland. Romania, yay. And to those of you who are new, I mean, probably most people who have tuned into this live stream are not new to my channel. Most of you probably know me already, but I am also from Romania. So Los Angeles, South Florida, Hungary, South Africa, Finland, Colorado, Dublin, Ohio. Oh, hi, Susan. Orlando, baby. Yes. Charleston. Yay. All right. So I am going to dive in and give me a little bit of time because I'm going to talk you through a lot of stuff and then I can go through some of your questions. So please don't feel like I'm ignoring you, but I do have quite a bit of information to share. And then we're gonna do questions as well, and obviously to those of to people who are gonna watch this later on, this is not just gonna be live stream; it's also gonna be saved as a regular video. So please feel free to share with your friends, to share with your family if you think this is interesting, and yeah, people can watch it later down the line as well. What's my name? My name is Ruxandra. I can see Howie asking what my name is. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into what on earth is going on in the world right now. So the astrological state of the world for 2020. If you've been listening to astrologers towards the end of last year, you've probably heard us, not just me, basically every astrologer out there on social media, on the internet, saying that 2020 is going to be a big year. A lot of astrologers predicted economical recession, and it looks like that is in the works as we speak right now. That was mostly due to having Uranus in Taurus. It was going to be squaring Saturn. We were thinking, okay, there might be a scarcity of resources, which seems to also be the case right now as we speak. But I've got to say, I was not thinking that the economical recession is going to be due to a pandemic. So that took me by surprise as well. This year is a historical year. It's going to set the tone for the next 4 decades. I've got to tell you this. And the phase that we are going through right now as we speak, as much as it pains me to share this information, I doubt that it's going to be a short phase. It will probably last for most of the year. It will have peaks and throws. So the mood is going to get a little bit lighter and we're going to get into that. But it's a year-long phase, and only towards the beginning of 2021 will we be able to look back and say, oh, now in hindsight, now I can see all of the effects and how everything unfolded across the world. So a few of the keywords for the year are transformation, revolution, redistribution of power. I know I say keywords. I'm thinking of the SEO term. It's not just one word. We've got our fears magnified. And who are the key players in 2020? You've probably heard me speak about them in my other videos, but it's obviously worth going through them one more time. We've got Saturn, which is the planet of authority, the planet that symbolizes the law, tradition, the status quo, the government, the institutions. It's also Father Time. So Saturn is associated with time. The other key player is Jupiter, which is associated with abundance, with faith, beliefs, religion, life philosophy. Jupiter is also travel. Guys, people, travel. Travel is so heavily impacted. Jupiter has an energy that amplifies whatever it touches. And last but not least, it is considered the planet of opportunity. Let's not forget that, because there will always be, in times of challenge, there will always be a silver lining. And usually the most challenging times also bring with them big opportunities that only the few tend to see, and then their life gets turned around because they saw the opportunity. So a little bit more about that later. And last but not least, the third big player of the year, Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth. Figurative death most of the times, although I feel like this year it can also, it's fair to say that we're probably going to associate it with actual death. Pluto is also the planet of power. It's a planet that has to do with control, with being in control, with the obsession of control. It's the planet that governs the underworld, so what happens behind the scenes, but actually runs the show and we don't know of it, and the shadows. Now let's talk about a few of the key dates that lie ahead of us, and of 2020 in general. So everything, the craziness, it all started one beautiful winter day in the Western Hemisphere. The first major key date for 2020 was the 12th of January. That's when we had a Saturn-Pluto exact conjunction in Capricorn. We also had the sun there, and we had Mercury in Capricorn as well, all in conjunction. So Saturn, Pluto, Sun, and Mercury. And even though it was not in a conjunction with the former 4 planets, Jupiter was also in Capricorn at the time. Now, Capricorn is the sign associated with the elite, with the people that run the show. It's associated with big corporations. It's also associated with the authority. Saturn is the planet that governs Capricorn. As one of my favorite astrologers that I follow on Instagram, Eliza Kelly, would say, Capricorn is daddy. Capricorn is the patriarchy. Capricorn is also Capricorn is the sign that runs resources and distribution of resources. Now, the last time, so going back to the conjunction that happened on the 12th of January, if we go back in time, we're going to see that actually what happened around the 12th of January was in China. Well, from China, we heard that the government was starting to isolate the area of Wuhan, where the coronavirus came from. Well, at least to what the media is saying, and at least to what the sources that we have access to are saying. Now, the last time Saturn and Pluto were conjunct in Capricorn, what we have happening this year, and what was exact around the 12th of January, Saturn and Pluto are running in cahoots with each other for most of 2020. Okay, but we have these like peaks throughout the year. And this peak was like the 12th of January. Now, the last time we had Saturn and Pluto together in Capricorn was in 1518. So a few hundred years ago. 2 months after Martin Luther nailed his thesis to the door. Big moment in time, as we all know. And also at the height of the first wave of European colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. Now, Saturn and Pluto, to an extent, are both associated with endings. Saturn is a natural end. So Saturn is associated with time and also with the elderly and with the material end of things. It's like we've eaten up all the resources. There's nothing left. It's barren, it's dry, it's dead. Pluto is associated with sudden death and quite violent death, I would say. So both of these planets are associated with actual or figurative death. But the interesting part, and what I'm really excited about, is Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. So there's also a resurrection aspect about it. Now, the most obvious meaning of Saturn and Pluto coming together is structures, societal structures collapsing. Now, maybe it is worth me mentioning why these three planets are so important this year. None of them are personal planets. So Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, and none of these are personal planets. They are transpersonal planets. So that means that they affect society overall, first and foremost. And then once society is affected, obviously we're all part of society. So we get impacted at various levels on an individual level. Now, what we have to do is, when Saturn and Pluto come together, usually and historically, what we've had to do is, after existing structures collapsed, we had to build them up again. Before 1518, when Saturn and Pluto were together in Capricorn, they were also together. They came up in a conjunction in 1284. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction coincided with the establishment of the most important currency at the time in Europe, the gold ducat in Venice, in Italy. And at the time, the Republic of Venice was banking central for Europe, in the same way that the city of London is for Europe today. Now, what I'm thinking is, and bear with me here, it is very possible that this year's financial crisis, and a financial crisis has long-term effects. But what happens this year in terms of financial crisis might very well, by 2023, give birth to a new mainstream currency that most likely will reform the financial and the banking system. I could go out on a limb and say that it's cryptocurrency, and we actually have a lot of supporting astrological data on that. We've got Uranus, the planet of technology and innovation, in Taurus till 2026. Taurus is the sign of money and financial resources. We also have Saturn going into Aquarius till 2023. Aquarius is, again, the sign of technological innovations, and Saturn is going to be squaring. It's going to be meeting with Uranus and Taurus. So they are coming together, and action has to be taken, and something has to come out of it, because when we've got a square, something has to happen. The energy doesn't flow easily. We have to take action. The world has to take action as a result of it and change the way things are. It will very likely prompt change. Now, why is this Saturn-Pluto cycle so important? I mean, I've told you a little bit about when Saturn and Pluto were conjunct in Capricorn, in the sign of Capricorn, a few hundred years ago. But the Saturn-Pluto cycle in other signs, because it can occur in other signs, occurs roughly every 33 to 38 years. What also tends to happen when these planets come together is corruption gets exposed. who is the question that is going to be on people's minds, and that is going to come into the collective consciousness is, are these people who are now in power worthy to be the custodians of power? This cycle usually tests the morality and the integrity of those in power. And those who do hold the power have a choice to make. They can either pick up the vibe and realize that actually they can't do things behind the scenes and just hope that the world is going to turn a blind eye and not going to mind what they're doing and the fact that they're looking after their own interests, or they can realize that actually we have to be upstanding citizens and do the right thing. Because Saturn and Pluto are karmic planets. They're both they both bring forward karmic challenges that we cannot run away from. We have to change something, and we have to prove ourselves worthy when they come to the fore. And the onus is going to be on people in power, on the authorities. Now, just a little bit of trivia for you to take away. David Rockefeller was born under a Saturn-Pluto cycle. They were actually in conjunction. Rupert Murdoch was born under an opposition between Saturn and Pluto. Bill Gates was born under a square between Saturn and Pluto. And Saudi Arabia, obviously, we all know that it possesses some of the largest supplies of oil in the world. It was established under a Saturn-Pluto opposition. A few more key developments that happened in the past century under a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So what we have this year. October 1914, the outbreak of World War I. We had a reshuffling of power dynamics in the world. The Russian monarchy was dissolved. The Ottoman Empire was dissolved. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was dissolved in Europe. And we had to obviously redraw the national borders in Europe. In 1931, we had a Saturn-Pluto opposition, which defined an era that included the Great Depression. The next Saturn-Pluto cycle started in 1947 after the Second World War ended. And this is when the big power struggle between capitalism and communism started. And in 1947, we also saw the division between India and Pakistan. 1982, economic recession in the world, highest rate of unemployment in the US since the Great Depression. The escalation of the Cold War, which led to the collapse of the Soviet bloc. And very interestingly, 1982 was also the year that the AIDS virus was identified and reached epidemic proportions. So just a bit of trivia to basically put into context and bring into perspective how important this year is and how big of an impact it will have on the rest of the century, or at least on the next 4 decades ahead of us. Now, 3 more key dates that we have to keep in mind throughout 2020. You know how I mentioned that the big 3 players this year are Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. We have also a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, pretty much going on at like a wider or narrower degree throughout the entire year. But the conjunction is exact on the 4th of April. So it is coming up right next. It's right around the corner. The 30th of June, the 12th of November. Now, a previous key development that happened under a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, 1919, around the breakout of the Spanish influenza. What tends to happen when Jupiter and Pluto come together? Let's not forget that Jupiter is what lies underneath the surface and what's buried underneath the surface. And sometimes a lot of shit is buried underneath the surface. We've got a lot of demons buried there. We've got A lot of the things that we do not want to face, we just like bury them very deep. Usually also the truth is buried very deep underneath the surface and you have to dig. But hey, we've got Jupiter with the magnifying glass coming up. And what happens is Pluto searches for a problem. Well, let's put it this way. Let's talk about the planets as if they were actors. Pluto searches for a problem to bring to our attention. Pluto can also pop Jupiterian bubbles of excess. It can cause sharp fluctuations in the market, what we're going to see right now. So ups and downs in the economy. Let's not forget Jupiter is also a planet associated with money and financial abundance. On a spiritual level, Jupiter is also associated with religion. So what can happen is Pluto can expose the so-called false prophets. Leaders that may preach ethical approaches and standards, but don't really abide by them in reality. Now, what I love, and I know I should probably not love anything about this period because it's a very difficult time for a lot of people. And I do think there's always a silver lining, like I said. Pluto-Jupiter cycles reflect our ability to transform difficulty into opportunity, both on an individual level and on a collective level. So what can happen this year is incongruencies, things that shouldn't actually come into effect when it comes to finances, when it comes to the banking system, when it comes to how money and resources are used. What are we spending our money on? Why are we so obsessed with money and material resources? Do we need to reshuffle that? Also, what do we believe in? What are our priorities? What is driving us? We might actually have to review all of that. And yes, some people will find brilliant opportunities that they will take advantage of. And we can also very much have, after the false prophets have been exposed, it's very likely that we will have light workers and people who preach the truth and walk the talk coming into the light. Now, I've got to say, and people might not agree with me because we don't have any sign of it. Well, maybe we do, but I don't know what to pay attention to because I try not to watch the news every other minute. Typically, when Jupiter and Pluto come together, they also bring financial opportunities and financial prosperity. This is actually an aspect that brings with it big cash. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mick Jagger, Robert De Niro, Mohandas Gandhi, they all have a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in their charts. So let's see how all of this turns around. And I'm very curious to see people's ideas and to see the brilliant ideas that are going to come out of all the craziness that is unfolding right now. You might be interested in what's happening in April. So let's talk a little bit about April 2020. I'm actually going to post on my channel tomorrow the April horoscope for each of the signs. What I'm discussing right now, what I'm going to walk you through right now is purely what is happening at a societal level. And I think that's also super important because we will all be affected by it. We are all connected. If there's one thing that this pandemic is going to make us realize is that there is no shutting of borders, people. The virus is everywhere, and we have to communicate and we have to collaborate if we are going to come out of it stronger. Because a virus is not dying. Viruses don't die. I mean, if you think of malaria, there's a vaccine against it, but it's still around. So once viruses come into reality, they're going to be sticking around, okay? So how do we deal with it? We have to work together. It's not just each man for themselves or each country for themselves. But hey, there's work to be done in that area. The shutting of borders, I don't know how that's going to help. It might help in the short term, but long term, I mean, it's probably too late already. Not to get very political here. So what is going to happen in April 2020? Predictions from Rux. It's very likely that throughout the entire month, we are going to have an outpouring of goodwill and generosity, and we are probably going to be very pleasantly surprised that people are becoming more and more selfless, and they're going to become more and more focused on the well-being of the many, even at the cost of the individual one. I mean, we can already see in the news pieces such as here in the UK, the NHS called for volunteers to help them out, and they were hoping to get 250,000 volunteers. Over 400,000 people signed up as volunteers. So I'm just getting goosebumps at hearing that and at reading that. Not to mention that we keep on hearing positive news. Again, I'm going to mention the UK about how the government is going to support the people, the good of the many at the expense of the few, at the expense of the elites. Now, a few of the key dates in April. Yes, we obviously have the 4th and the 5th of April when Jupiter and Pluto are in exact conjunction. Now, it's very possible around this time that, yes, there can be a magnifying, and there can be a sudden, what appears to be a sudden increase in death, okay, in grief. So there can be a magnifying glass put on what appears to be death raising the earth. However, at the same time, it's also very possible that the death of an old belief system can come all of a sudden around the same time, because we have Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, squaring Uranus in Taurus. So Aquarius is an air sign. Taurus is an earth sign. Aquarius rules the mind and the masses of people and the greater good for the masses of people, for society at large. Taurus is holding on to the purse strings. Mars is sudden and violent. Saturn is end, and Uranus is completely unexpected, and Uranus is the wild card, the surprise. Now, it's also very possible that whoever is holding on to resources will be held accountable in April and asked to redistribute them to the masses. It's also very possible that those holding on to resources may all of a sudden become a bit more optimistic, especially in the first 2 weeks of April, as significant improvements can be made in regards to the healthcare system, in regards to health-related developments. Last but not least, food can be used as medicine. So that's also something in April for us to keep our eyes peeled. What I really like about April is that throughout the entire month, for most of the month, we have Venus in Gemini. Gemini, the sign of communication, the sign of connections, the sign of socializing. Another air sign, so again, associated with ideas. Trining Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. Brilliant ideas. So this is a month for brilliant ideas coming out of people discussing, connecting, exchanging thoughts. Exchange thoughts, people. Connect with others. Really huge advances can be made if people start talking to each other. The advances that I'm talking about are most likely going to be on a scientific and a technological front, because Aquarius is the sign that rules technology. Around the 7th of April, we might hear of potentially huge positive developments, ideas and discoveries that can save us. But But the catch here is that they might not be very easy to implement from a logistical standpoint. Logistics seems to be killing us, okay? Sorry, not literally, but we have to figure out logistics. On the 11th of April, we have Mercury moving into Aries. Boom. So our mind is sharp and clear again because Mercury rules the mind. And it's sextiling Saturn in Aquarius. We seem to be hatching a plan, and straight away we start to put it into practice. The time for action is now. Also, in April, we're probably going to see a lot less panic than what we are seeing right now. I mean, at this very moment in time, we've got Mercury, which rules communications, it rules the media, it also rules our logical mind. I've got to say, Mercury in Pisces can create confusion. People don't know what to do. Panic, anxiety, it can be very easy to fall into quite dark mental states. So the mood overall is probably going to be a lot lighter in April than it is right now in March. March is a very heavy month. So throughout the year, March and November are really heavy months, just FYI. On the 19th of April, we've got a minor grand trine between Mars in Aquarius, Mercury in Aries, and Venus in Gemini. It might feel like the world is becoming increasingly optimistic and able to analyze the data and the science better. We have more data, we have more science. Listen to the science, as the UK government would say. Now, on the 20th of April, we've got the sun moving into Taurus and squaring Saturn in Aquarius. What is very possible to happen around this time is that the powers that be, the authorities, might try to push the people, Aquarius, to go, so not just people who are Aquarians, but Aquarius in mundane astrologers rules the people, all of us. So it's very possible that the powers that be try to push us back into the old normal, but there is no going back. So that's the catch. On the 27th of April, I have to say it's very possible because Mercury is moving into Taurus. We start talking more and reading more and hearing more about money and the economy. So it might feel like we are caring less, or not necessarily caring less, but the world is less focused on the health developments and more on the economical developments. But it's very important to forget that people come first. And 30th of April, we might hit a little bit of a wall. We have a T-square between the moon in Leo, Saturn in Aquarius, and Sun and Mercury and Taurus. So the way I'm reading this, I'm interpreting it, is the authorities are trying to charm their way out of creating the right circumstances for people that would protect their livelihood in the long run. They might prioritize the economy. And they might get away with it for now. But it's very likely that it will come to bite them in the proverbial ass in October. We have Jupiter going in retrograde on the 13th of May till September. We've also got Pluto on the 25th of April going into retrograde till the 4th of October. It is very likely that we might go back to a certain normal, what seems to be normal, the old normal for a little bit. Also, Venus is going in retrograde from May till almost the end of June. We might start from like mid-May to go back to socializing as we used to do before, to go back to what appears, like I said, the old so-called normal. But once Jupiter, Pluto start going direct and start coming together to form that exact conjunction towards the end of the year, towards November, there might be a resurgence of what we are seeing right now. Things will likely ease up for good. and we will probably be able to say confidently that this is it, this is the end of it. What have we learned from it? Towards the end of January 2021, we can assess the situation properly. Now, I'm very excited because at the end of the year, we've got Saturn moving into Aquarius till 2023. So Saturn is currently in Aquarius, but only for a short period of time, only for like 2.5 months. Then it's going back into Capricorn. Again, we have a lot of retrogrades. That's why I'm thinking around like throughout the summer, things might seem to be going back to the way they were, but it's a false impression and it's a short-lived impression. December, Saturn moving into Aquarius till 2023, Jupiter moving into Aquarius for the rest of 2021. This might just be what they call the proverbial age of Aquarius. 2021, breakthrough year. When it comes to technology, when it comes to innovation, scientific breakthroughs, and the good of the people. It's almost like a resurrection, I would say, or a resurrection, like a rising from the ashes of democracy in the way we have never seen it before. So quite excited for what's coming up next. That's just me. Let me just spend a few more minutes going through your questions. Thank you so much, people, for commenting. There's a lot here. Let me know if you have any specific questions about the world, about what's happening out into the world at large. Because like I said, my April horoscope for each zodiac sign is coming out tomorrow. So stay tuned. Oh, I love you guys. I can't tell you. I don't know if you can tell that I'm quite emotional right now because I've only gone live once. So this is my second time going live and my very first time going live on YouTube. So yes, if you're interested in seeing what's happening to you on an individual level, watch my April horoscope going live tomorrow on the 27th of March. Yes. So due to the planets going through some signs, will some people be more affected than others? That's a really good question. Everyone's going to be affected. Oh, yes, I will go live more often. Everyone's going to be affected, but they will be affected in a different area of their life. Now, what I recommend that you do is you look at your natal chart. It's very easy to generate a natal chart. You can do it using online free resources such as Astro.com. What's very important for you to know is your date, time, and place of birth. The time is something that you might have to go to your mom to ask for. And once you generate your natal chart, you can look in which sector of your chart, which house is ruled by Capricorn, because that's where you will have this conglomerate of planets in Capricorn coming together. So Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, all the good guys that I've been telling you about. I also want to say it's very likely that this period is going to be taken, especially, so March might have been really hard on fire and air signs. So I'm thinking about the fire signs. I'm thinking about Aries. I'm thinking about Leo. Also the air signs, so Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. I forgot Sagittarius in the fire signs department. Fire signs and air signs, you might feel like the mood is lightening up in April a little bit. And I've got to say, earth signs and water signs, or people who have a lot of planets in earth signs and water signs, might actually be enjoying this whole quarantine thing to a certain extent. They might find it a lot easier to deal with than these other guys. But yeah, it's hard on everyone. what is my sign? So I'm going to end on this, just to give you a quick overview of where I am, where I stand. So I am an Aquarius sun sign. I am a Cancer rising sign and a Capricorn moon. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. If you are interested in a yearly personalized horoscope, please feel free to reach out through my website. You can find my website in the description box for all my other videos. So just go to my channel and dig out the March horoscope, and you can see in the video description the link to my website. Yearly horoscopes are going to be personalized for you specifically. So I'm going to be looking at your transit chart based on your own natal chart, and also at your progress chart, and also at your solar return chart. So if you want to get more granular data about what's happening with you, please feel free to get in touch. Once again, thank you so much for joining. It has been a pleasure, people. And I might just go live more often because you have been so supportive. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Bye.